Foldable phones are a curious thing. They burst onto the scene a bit rough and ready with Samsung's first Z Fold and Z Flip, and the pace of improvement for the first year or two was incredible. But now things have slowed to a more incremental pace for the Galaxy makers. The point where rumours suggest not any major upgrades are expected for the Z Flip 6 from the Z Flip 5. That's this phone here. And after nearly 12 months with its compact clamshell, the question is it still worth buying, or should you wait for the next one now that it's so close to launching? I'm Cam Bunton, this is Trusted Reviews, let's dive in. So before going over some long-term thoughts about the Z Flip 5, it's probably worth looking at what we're expecting from the Z Flip 6, and the answer to that question is a little disappointing. Now, last year we saw a huge jump when they replaced that tiny ticker display with the much larger one on this model. You could now read things at arm's length and not have to hold it within millimeters of your eyeballs just to find out that the notification was Amazon begging you to review that inflatable kayak you bought in the sales. Plus, the customization abilities are aces. It was just a huge jump, and I think that big upgrade means not such a big upgrade this time out. That outer screen is rumoured to be largely the same, but perhaps a tiny bit bigger. The inner display also very much the same, but maybe with slimmer bezels and slightly thicker glass with a slightly less obvious crease in the middle. Even the design is largely the same according to leaks. Maybe a little squarer and some new colours. But one thing I think might be worth it is the bigger battery, but even that is only a small jump from 3,700 mAh to almost 4,000. But along with the newer, more energy efficient Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 processor, it might just last a good couple of hours longer on a full charge. That is admittedly an educated guess, but every phone that I've used so far with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 this year has had really good battery life, even when you're using it for gaming and videos, so fingers crossed for that. Oh, and lastly, it's a bit of a downer. Supposedly it's going to cost $100 more in the US, which could mean £100 more in the UK too. And when you consider you can get super deals, some as low as almost £500 in some places for the Z Flip 5, it really seems like a lot to ask for a mild spec bump. So moving on to talk about the Z Flip 5, and there's one thing that's true about the Z Flip 5 and actually is true about a lot of foldables, is that they still have this inherent weakness when it comes to durability. And even though things are definitely better for the Flip 5, there are some bits you just can't get around. For instance, because it's bendy and made of multiple layers, that internal screen is still softer than glass. Now, that top layer of film, the bit you actually touch, seems to be okay, but if any little bits of debris or grains of sand or anything gets in the tiny gap between the film and the frame, that can mark up the flexible panel beneath without too much trouble. And actually, this is the second unit I've had, because even the outer glass isn't the most durable thing I've experienced using. I dropped it from about 2 feet from a bench onto some concrete, and the outer glass cracked across the front of the cover display on the first model that I got. Now, I've not had any delaminating yet, thankfully, so no layers peeling off from the inside, but again, that internal film has some compromises over glass. It's not as resistant to oils and so smudges up really easily. And then there's the crease, which is pretty visible a lot of the time, and you can definitely feel it every time you run your finger across it. So now that we've got some slight negatives out of the way, there are little ways in which the Flip continues to delight, or at least is really practical. Its very concept, turning a big screen into a small, foldable, pocketable form factor, is wonderful. Especially if I'm off out for a run and want to slip something into the small hidden pocket in my running shorts, it fits much better than any traditional flagship will. Now, this isn't unique, but on a big name flagship, it's unusual to have a physical fingerprint sensor built into the side of the phone. I personally find it way more intuitive and convenient than trying to scan my thumb on a screen and adjusting my grip to do it. The button is pretty much right where my thumb is on my right hand, and it unlocks quickly. I have had some failed reads, but it's not all that often. And it's so convenient being able to fold the phone to any angle, and for apps like YouTube to automatically push the video to the top half and the controls to the bottom, or being able to use it to shoot hands-free selfies or scroll through your photo gallery. It is actually way more useful than I thought it would be. Another feature that can't be dismissed with Samsung is the reliability in which you get software updates and security patches. I've said it in a few Samsung videos in the past, but just like most of the recent flagships, you can bet a security patch will drop almost as soon as it's available if you have this phone. Now, I filmed this video in the middle of June, and I had the June security patch. A lot of other phones from other manufacturers are still waiting for the one from 2 or 3 months ago. What's more, One UI 6.1 was delivered pretty promptly too, and this is Samsung's Android 14 skin, with the features baked in that launched on the Galaxy S24 series at the beginning of the year. That includes the intelligent or Galaxy AI features, so it can do things like summarize your notes or help you with your spelling and grammar, or even rewrite your emails and messages so that they fit the tone and the context of who you're communicating with. But sometimes it does just try to be too clever for its own good, like when you want to remove stuff from photos, it'll just replace them with something it generated itself instead of deleting them like you asked it to. No idea why it does that, it's probably just showing off. Like when you have a small child wanting to show you their latest drawing and you pretend it's all wonderful and stick it on the fridge, or more accurately, you think it is wonderful because it's your child. Galaxy AI's photo editing features is like Samsung's child, and it's terribly proud of it, even if it's awful. Except this is supposed to be advanced intelligence and is quite frankly annoying when instead of blank space it replaces the thing you wanted to delete with a weirdly shaped cushion or a candle or a plant that doesn't even look real. Well done, Galaxy. There's not a lot new to say in terms of performance or cameras at this point, it's still decent in most regards. I'm not a particularly heavy user, so don't struggle to make it last a full day, but it does drain more than most other phones that I've used recently, thanks to those using the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. It'll just about get to the end of the day, but if you're a heavier user, you might struggle. Similarly, performance is fast enough, but it seems sometimes like the Galaxy interface is a tiny bit sluggish to respond when you ask it to go from a static screen to a different one, like swiping to go home or dropping down the quick setting shade from the top of the screen. And there's no massive improvement in the cameras after updates either. You still have cameras that will deliver vibrant, very colourful, saturated shots in daytime, with the ultra-wide colours usually pretty close to matching those of the primary camera. The ultra-wide shots are a little rougher in terms of noise and detail, but I've seen much worse. Still, neither competes with the quality of cameras available on the more traditional flagship phones, especially when it comes to the zoom. You'll be fine digitally zooming to 2 times, but anything more and the details really do fall off a cliff, and images start to look a lot more like impressionist oil paintings on canvas. Now, the main argument for not waiting for the Z Flip 6 is that there are currently some pretty good deals on the current model, making it quite a lot cheaper than its original price point, especially if you use a trade-in offer. And if the only improvements are a slightly bigger battery and the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, you're really not going to miss out on too much, and you'll have the knowledge that you've got an incredible deal for a phone that's practically as good. However, if it's still virtually full price where you are, I'd say you've got nothing to lose by waiting. In fact, you might gain. Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 and a bigger battery should mean better performance, to the point where it might even just be a realistic option even for the heavier phone users, especially if it's going to be a bit more durable too. So let me know what you're going to do in the comments down below, or you can get me on Threads. I'm at Cam Bunton. Are you going to get the Z Flip 5, or are you going to wait for the new one? If you did like this video, please do leave a thumbs up, subscribe and tap that notification bell. Thanks so much for watching. Bye bye.